are here once again. A suggestion of recurring guest, JJ. What's up?
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, go! Okay.
I'm your host, Sully, and here, as always, is Tom.
Also known as the Pete Best of the group.
And Paul Derby.
Help us. Help us. Help us.
Help us. Oh, man. So, yeah, we are doing basically our first reaction. We're just like, I mean, maybe our second. We kind of did that with the Snyder Cut, but yeah, no, we're talking about the Beatles reissue of Revolver album that's coming out this year.
Tomorrow,
as we speak. Yes.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you'll have to hear it a few months from now. Anyway.
But tomorrow never knows.
So, who are the Beatles again?
Yeah, who the hell are they? Sounds like nice guys. And ironically, the same day that this news, like we were scheduling this episode, what's her name? Patty Boyd was basically being interviewed by one of those British magazines saying how it was such a mistake to marry George Harrison and Eric Clapton. I'm like, jeez.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's got their moment in the sun. It's Beatles Mania this week, the same fucking month as Halloween. Man.
I'll say this: you ever see pictures of her when she was younger? Oh my God! Jesus. Yeah, you can see why the Quiet Beatle went with the hot blonde. Oh.
But it's all right. She's not on this album, nor is Yoko Ono? Question mark.
No.
Thankfully. Okay, so with Revolver, you have all 11 tracks with a new stereo mix on CD 1. 14 tracks, my bad.
Yeah.
And music guys are now throwing balls at me. Get it right, damn you. CD 2 and 3 are sessions 1 and 2. CD 4 is the original mono master. And CD 5 is the EP, which has a new stereo mix of Paperback Writer, Rain, and the original mono mix remastered for Paperback Writer, and the original mono mix remastered for Rain again. So, yeah. Thoughts? JJ, why did you want to weigh in on this? What really just stuck at you?
Because to me, this is the end of the beginning and the beginning of the beginning. And it sounds confusing when I say that because you have to realize from 62 to 65, they were the mop tops, right? They'd done Europe, they conquered Britain, they conquered Europe. They were, they went to America, they conquered America. And every album was a big step. The first one, Please Please Me, is basically done in 12 hours. Okay. Then they do With the Beatles, which is, now there's a little bit more of Lennon and McCartney, their stuff. And George is writing his first song, Don't Bother Me.
Mm-hmm.
A Hard Day's Night comes out. That's the first total Lennon and McCartney record. Beatles for Sale. Okay, that's a little bit of a growing up because there's some songs on there that are like melancholy, like Babies in Black, I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, What You're Doing. Help has Yesterday on it. It's Only Love. So now the songwriting is beginning to split. It's now Paul and John writing their own stuff, and George is starting to write more. Rubber Soul comes along, and that's where now it's going to be like, okay, we're in the studio. They did that, I think, in 8 weeks or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were on the rush for Christmas, because you got to remember back then they had to put out 2 albums a year. And what happened was that with this record, they went in and they said, we have the ideas, we can do all this stuff sonically. And this is going to be where we're going to grow up more, where we're going to become more of a studio band.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to experiment more with sounds, with the way, with instruments and all that stuff. So this to me is the growing up point for them. And this is where it's the blueprint for Sgt. Pepper. And it's also where everybody in the rock community went, pop and rock went, wow, whoa, what have they done here?
Very unpredictable.
I think it was Dewey Cox who really went through them down that road.
Fair enough. Was this one of your favorite albums, or was it kind of whatever?
It's become my favorite record, I think, next to Abbey Road and Sgt. Pepper, because of the fact that Abbey Road is the last record they recorded together. Pepper's the one where it's kind of like I always thought Sgt. Pepper was better than Revolver, but I've now put Revolver above Sgt. Pepper. I don't know if it's something to do with how everything sounds, because the sonics have changed with the recording techniques. You know, it's a very sort of it's a groundbreaking record. I mean, everybody says, you know, there's the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, there's the Rolling Stones' Aftermath, there's Bob Dylan's Blonde on Blonde. Revolver's the one where everything kind of shifted and went. Everybody went, oh, you know, look at these songs they have on here. You know, these are amazing.
Nice. Tom, how about yourself?
Well, I have a bit of a bias here. I am a much bigger fan of the earlier Beatles for a couple of reasons. One,
Damn sellouts. No, just kidding.
Pretty much, yeah. But no, one of them reasons is because I do have a soft spot in my heart for some of that early rock and roll, like your Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Jerry Lee Lewis, and the early stuff. Pretty much borrowed a lot from that. I blame Happy Days for that, by the way. But the other, curse you, Chuck Cunningham. But the other reason is because for me, music is at its best when it's just very simple, not super complicated, choruses or lyrics or anything. That I listen. Music for me is about getting that tone just right, getting the feel just right, and even having the words just right. If you can get those three elements together, then you've got magic. And for me, the Beatles truly hit their stride when they were just starting out, when they were hitting the songs like "Please Please Me," and one of the songs that has become my personal favorite, "I'll Follow the Sun." You'll still hear elements of that later on, like while my guitar gently weeps. But the earlier stuff, and I'll piggyback on what JJ said. Revolver really did kind of smooth the needle away from, this is the simple stuff. We're kind of copying Chuck Berry here and doing all of this, to being distinct. To being taking that next step, or at least taking the half step and necessary to become the Beatles. I'll call them Beatles 2.0.
No, I agree.
I'll compare it to another band that kind of went through the same kind of evolution. One of my favorite bands, Rush. They started out as a Led Zeppelin clone, pretty much, and then eventually they evolved.
No, they didn't. No, I get it.
Yeah, they did.
I'm just kidding.
But then they had a period where it wasn't good enough for them anymore. They had issues with the label. They had issues with people not getting their music. So they made one defiant stand with the album in 2112. From there, it rocketed them to the moon. And then beyond that, they were able to kind of write their own ticket. For me, Revolver is kind of the Beatles version of 2112, in that it started them on a journey where they literally became a totally different band, without any kind of restrictions, without any kind of thoughts about image or anything like that. They became a distinct band at that point.
And the thing with that is that, when you talk about a distinct band, they kind of set the bar. I mean, you know, Brian Wilson had put out Pet Sounds earlier that year, and all of a sudden, the Stones had put out Aftermath, and all of a sudden, they come out with this record and everybody goes, oh, we got to set the bar higher again. And like you said with Rush, they set that bar for themselves that people were trying to catch up to, if I'm right in saying.
People are still trying to catch up to both the Beatles and Rush in that regard.
Yeah, okay, well, very nice. So it seems like this all worked out for all parties, though. I mean, once you get past, again, all the talking heads and what have you. But altogether, what do you make of this generation? Like how they're going to probably consume it? Some are going to do it, obviously, go out and get the vinyl, and some are going to actually sit down and, just download it.
I think the thing is that you're going to hear. Well, Paul, let me ask you a question. What do you think of this? With them as with this record and everything.
Oh, it's good stuff. It's got a couple of my favorite tracks of theirs throughout their entire catalog. That being Eleanor Rigby and Yellow Submarine. Yellow Submarine was probably the first song of theirs that I ever really caught on to that band as a kid.
Yeah, me too.
Probably for a lot of kids, really.
Yeah,
because we saw the movie when we were kids, and we hey, everybody talks like this in the movie.
Yeah. I think I first watched that off of a PBS one time. I was like, "What is this?
Yeah,
it's
great.
On there. I love it."
We didn't know about the damn, censoring of British media over the U.S. We're just like, oh, it's fun.
Yeah,
but
yeah, that song really caught me. Eleanor Rigby. I don't know what it is about that song, but it's just always stuck in my head. One of my old friends used to always kind of make fun of me on that song. He always referred to that song as creepy bastard music, which I thought was a fairly apt description for it, but I still loved it.
I mean, if you want, just about every song can sound creepy. I've seen everything from Rick Ashley's "Never Gonna Give You Up" to Sting's "I'll Be Watching You."
Yeah, I never really thought about.
He sure does love talking about prostitutes. What the hell, man?
the thing.
Seen a lot of things on tour.
Yeah. The thing that's getting me though is these demos that they've been like dropping on the internet of John actually writing the chords and singing something that would become Yellow Submarine. And if you've heard it, it's a very like kind of like not depressing, but sort of like sad song. It's just him strumming the guitar. In the town where I was born, no one cared, and the people that lived around didn't care. It's just like this really sad song. And then Paul comes in and says, all right, I got an idea. Let's just change the lyrics up. And I had this dream about a guy being in a yellow submarine.
Yeah.
So you hear them doing Yellow Submarine for the first time. You hear a version of I got to get you into my life where there's no horns, where they're playing the horn riff on a fuzzed out guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and George's demo of Love to You, which would be or Love You Too, I think it is, where he's playing on an acoustic guitar and he's just breaking where you hear the sitar parts and stuff like that. And it's it's amazing, these demos they've been like slowly dropping and slowly putting into our you got to hear
take
this.
them out of the archives.
Yeah. Well, the thing that's me is like I thought there was less that was in there, and Giles Martin went in and just pulled stuff out, and I know that Yoko had some tapes that she kept of John, when he was in his house in Weybridge in '66, just writing these demos and stuff like that.
It's a tough business.
It is, but you think about the record track by track. The one I can't wait to hear is Tomorrow Never Knows, if anybody's ever heard that song.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
That'll be interesting to hear. Eleanor Rigby will be interesting to hear. Taxman, everything is going to be interesting to hear when it's remastered. She said, which is probably one of the most iconic songs ever written about tripping with Peter Fonda. Did you ever hear that story? You guys got to hear this. So it was 60,
really doesn't surprise me.
Well, 65, they were taking LSD, right? And they were tripping with Peter Fonda.
We'll return after these messages.
Hello and welcome to Culture Shocked, the pop culture podcast brought to you by four aging millennials and our outdated opinions. Join us every Tuesday as we discuss movies, TV, games, and even music, new and old.
Dude, what do you think you're doing?
Are you seriously trying to record a promo without us right now?
Well, yeah.
Dude, you can't just do the promo by yourself. Who's gonna listen to that?
Yeah, and you probably haven't even told them that we're a pop culture podcast where we always agree on everything. For instance, the Sam Raimi trilogy, easily being the best of the Spider-Man movies.
No. But I think we can all agree that Jaws is a classical masterpiece.
Nope, don't like that. But we do all agree that the sequel trilogy of Star Wars is the best in the Skywalker saga, right, guys?
That comment is so ridiculous. I don't even know where to
Anyways, that'll do it from all of us here at Culture Shock. Thanks for listening.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
We let things pile up in the DVR. We add them to our queues. We wait for the DVDs and Blu-rays. We time shift. The Time Shifters Podcast. Sci-fi, horror, fantasy, superheroes, comedy, action, film, television, maybe some not-so-current events. Find us on iTunes or at timeshifterspodcast.com.
Cool thing about Blind Knowledge is we are in multiple countries. We are worldwide all across the globe. We are in the US, we are in the UK, we are in Canada, Germany, India, Japan. We're in Australia, y'all. BlindKnowledge.com. Now back to the feature presentation.
Thinking David Crosby too for some reason. And Peter Fonda kept saying, I know what it's like to be dead. I know what it's like to be dead. Because what had happened was when he was a kid, he had found a gun of his father's and the gun discharged into his stomach. And he was dead for about, I don't know, like 2-3 minutes. Jeez. And yeah, and it's kind of like you're kind of like hearing the backstory, but I want to hear everything as it happens. That's the thing I love hearing. I loved hearing about these remasters. To hear Pepper going from just a little bit of a song idea that Paul or John or George had to now growing into this giant, this piece of art that no one had done before, and this is going to be fun to hear. It's going to be fun to hear everything as it goes along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you especially when you listen to certain songs, even on today's some of those stations, it's like sometimes they'll play like deep cuts like late at night, especially on college stations or crowdfunded, KRA, PBS affiliates.
Yeah.
And there was one, with the syndicated radio shows they feature, there was one where they were like featuring songs that have a chorus in them, and they went for so many songs, and I was listening to some of those. It had everything from 70s, 80s, and 90s, but I was just like, wow, this sounds like a different studio in session cut or something. I'm hearing more background than I typically hear on the radio edit. So it is interesting, yes, when you have it in the palm of your hand and you're seeing just all this other firsthand stuff and you get bragging rights as a fan. You're like, no, I went through their damn discography. I'm hearing something different here that I did not hear the first 20 dozen times I've heard that song.
Yeah, that is always kind of exciting.
Right. I mean, it's the same thing when we do all these movie reviews and we talk about the differences between the VHS, DVD, or Blu-ray.
You were talking about the Beatles' early stuff. How that was rock and roll, and I always say this: the first couple records they did, "Please Please Me," with, now we're talking the British catalog, not the American catalog, because the American catalog was always kind of like, I always compare it to getting chopped steak.
Yeah, subsidized.
Yeah, if you ever heard those stories about what they did with the Beatles records and most of the British Invasion records over here in America, you'd be pissed off, because they would take the hit single and then build the songs around it from like one album or another album, and chronologically it just didn't sound right. They would have 12 tracks on each album, where in Britain they had 14. So that's why we have in America we've got Meet the Beatles, the Beatles' second album, Something New, if I remember correctly. There was Help, Rubber Soul. Then they take Rubber Soul, they take that apart, they take some of Revolver apart, that becomes Yesterday and Today. They put out it was only after 67 or after 66 they said, hey, our records are going to stay the same no matter what.
Yeah.
So, but the thing I need to say is, like, those early records, and you can hear it, it's only 4 tracks they're using. So no.
Yeah, it was. They used a 4-track reel to reel.
It was using 4-track reel to reel. And then I think when they got to Abbey Road, they were using like 8-track or something like that, from what I remember. So they could do a lot of what they call bouncing down. They could take a vocal off of one, put it to another, another track altogether. That opened everything up sonically for them.
Well,
so you could,
which do you prefer?
What do you mean?
When it comes to recording and playing it back?
I like 4-track personally, because you can hear things leak. And with 8-track, it kind of feels sterile in some way. Not that I'm putting down,
but not.
Well, it's like you can put a lot on. It's like you can put a lot on something, and either it'll sound great or it'll sound terrible.
Gotcha.
And the great one is, listening to Sgt. Pepper. The worst one is listening to Phil Spector's version of Let It Be, where he just like, basically it's just an amalgamated mass of strings and angelic choirs and stuff like that. And George Martin had it best. He says, produced by George Martin, overproduced by Phil Spector.
Yeah. Sounds right. Fucker shot someone.
Yeah, fucking asshole.
He's already shooting so many people. So
what's the joke I heard the one time? If anybody hears, if you hear a clap of thunder, you're outside. If you hear a bang, you're inside Phil Spector's house. But
Thanks.
or what's Phil Spector's favorite lyric in the B-52s ever wrote? Bang bang on the door, baby.
Man.
But yeah, I mean, there's this thing where, like, the equipment got better as time went along, and Tom, don't get me wrong, I love those early Beatles records. I really do. But this was like, this was the step forward. Like you said, it was the step forward. And and you got to think 66 is the most controversial year for them. You know, they go to Japan. They are almost, they're threatened by playing at the Budokan Arena. They go to the Philippines. They're attacked in the Philippines. John Lennon makes his controversial statements about Jesus Christ, which
the Beatles are now more popular than Jesus.
Yeah.
What do you expect from a hippie?
But but no, he really said Rod. He said Rod, and the reporter who was slightly deaf thought he said God, but it was really Rod. And Rod Stewart wanted to come around for another 6 years. Ruddle's joke. But yeah, I mean, and I think what was happening was that they were growing up and they couldn't do Beatlemania anymore. They couldn't be the lovable cherry mop tops anymore. They were now becoming, you know, adults. You know, 3 of them had families already. You know, so to me it was like, okay, we're going to be growing up now. We're going to go, and you have to think after August when they tour, John goes off and does How I Won the War. George goes to India. Ringo stays at home. Paul does a movie score by the Bolting Brothers in The Family Way. And they don't go back to the studio till November of 66. So Revolver kind of made everything expand for them, you know, musically, mentally, because, you know, they were taking certain chemicals.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what it is with this record. It's gonna lay a lot of. And you said something about our the generation that's now.
Yeah,
I think the kids who know who the Beatles are and don't listen to a certain rapper who basically made anti-Semitic statements.
Okay, you need to narrow it down a little bit there.
Moving on, he will not be named on this fucking podcast. We're better than that. Anyway,
yeah. I said something that I worked with Skechers. When you want to kick a guy out of your office,
and make sure he fills the
steel toe variety.
Yeah, you can clip them with those wheels too. So,
but when I think the kids today are hungry, and they want to hear this, and they want to hear. There are the kids that know rock and roll, and the kids that don't know rock and roll.
Correct.
And the kids that know their music history, and I think the kids that know their music history are going to be looking at this, going, "Oh, I wonder how this sounded." You know, 1966. I wonder how everything got together. You know, I wonder how it sounded for my grandparents.
Those that value it. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see who shares it on Spotify versus actually buys it opening day. It'd just be cool to see stats. Let's see.
I want to get the box set, but I was looking at the price of the box set. I was like, oh, no.
What's it going for on Amazon now?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I'd like to find out.
Pretty pricey.
Yeah.
Okay. So Revolver remaster price.
I actually have the Mark Lewisham book, the Beatles recording sessions.
It is going for $1.99.
Oh, no.
$1.99. I can afford that.
No, I mean 200. So.
Oh, 200 cents? I'll take that. No problem.
Cents. Yeah. All right. So you want the vinyl? Yeah, you got this. Jeez.
Hey, man, you got to get the vinyl, man. You can play it backwards and hear stuff. Do you guys remember that when we were all growing up? There'd be like this guy who came around saying, "If you play rock and roll backwards, you'll hear messages from the devil and drug messages."
Right, all the fear mongering.
Yeah, I heard that every once in a while from places here and there. I used to play a lot of vinyl as a kid. Vinyl and 8-track.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And
this is gonna
go ahead.
If this is gonna be 180 gram vinyl, if they're gonna release it in 180 gram vinyl, you're gonna hear every little thing, like a pin drop in the background.
And then what?
Yeah, and I'll go off of what JJ said. The kids know rock and roll; they're going to get it. The kids who don't know rock and roll, I'm not sure. There's a shot they will get it, but not get it as deeply. And I think the reason for that comes down to just the longevity of it. Pop music goes from genre to genre to genre with a frequency of a TikTok fad.
Yeah.
But music, good music is eternal. I can't remember who said it, but somebody said something about as long as there are teenage boys, there will be the Doors. And the same thing goes with the Beatles. As long as there are teenage boys, there's going to be the Beatles. You know, even spreading out, you're also going to get. You're always going to have Leonard Skinner. You're always going to have the Who. You're going to have Led Zeppelin. You're going to have your Doors, the Rush, the Beach Boys, and so on, because their music, though put into a certain time capsule, as it were, the music and the messages themselves are eternal.
Yeah,
so it's very rhythmic.
Yeah, and even whether you listen to it on a vinyl record, either from now or back then, or going MP3 or going CD, Blu-ray, whatever musical thing you want to do now, you're still going to get the very basics. You're going to get your good lyrics. You're going to get the good musicianship. You're going to get the good tone, the good feel, and that is what's going to make it memorable.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can definitely hope so, because I mean, I'm just tired of having to answer just 100 questions for people who just don't follow this. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that is still censored by certain estates, but you know, you can dig if you want to find it.
The thing too with this record is you're going to hear a lot of things more clearly than they were in the original mix, because you got to realize that's the first real hard rock record that they do. Because all the guitars, if you hear the guitars on Revolver, they're really crunchy. They're real. When I mean crunchy, I mean there's like if you were in England in the '60s and you were recording, you couldn't go into the red.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the Beatles were like the first band, other than the Who, I think. But the Beatles were like the first band I can remember them like compressing a sound or something like that, or using a fuzz box or something like that. Just to make everything sound more, like you hear a song like "And Your Bird Can Sing." That's straight out of that's them being a rock band, 4 on the Floor rock band.
Mm-hmm.
Taxman, or what was it? Everything sounds very like, bang, punch.
In your face. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all got a nice sound.
Yeah, and even going back a little bit earlier than that, you can kind of get the sense of what that kind of planting the seeds for, like a Taxman with a song like "Baby," like with the song "Drive My Car." It's definitely higher, up tempo, still mostly having its feet in the early Beatles period, but also saying, okay, we're going to push this a little bit more. And the Taxman, especially just a little vocal or audio distortion kicks it up to a new level, because this is some serious shit coming down.
Yeah. Well, love to You is like the one I can remember. That was the first time I really heard raga rock. Even though the Stones had done it with Paint It Black, this was George, entering the world of Indian music, entering the world of, what's going to happen next. When he does Within and Without You, on Pepper. So it's like he's going to start his journey here. John's going to start his journey into like Strawberry Fields and, being for the benefit of Mr. Kite and A Day in the Life with
Forever.
Tomorrow Never Knows and She Said.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul's going to become, the best pop songwriter of all time, with For No One, Gotta Get You Into My Life, Here, There, and Everywhere, which was inspired by the Beach Boys. Even Brian Wilson was like, I don't think I can top that, because he heard Paul had heard God Only Knows, and he's like, well, I think I could do a little bit better. But it wasn't like, I'll beat the crap out. No, it's like, okay, I'll write a song.
Jealous, yeah. No.
And it'll have and you want to. The story is, he wrote that song waiting for John Lennon outside, and he says, I got this song here, you got to hear it. And John said later, he's like, that's the best song Paul ever wrote.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, closing thoughts. Where do you what do you think they'll probably do Beatles related next? Yeah, because obviously, last year everyone was celebrating the Peter Jackson 9-hour documentary. What other things do you think is there going to be an expo or another remaster?
This just in, that the Peter Jackson Beatles movie, it's still going on.
You're right. 9 hours later.
Just wait till you see the Schneider cut.
Oh.
Wait till you see the scene where they digitally inserted Alan Klein, where Paul McCartney walks up to him, and he actually walks around Alan Klein, and they had to make Paul McCartney step on Alan Klein's tail.
And finally, we get to see the real Billy Shears.
Oh God, don't get me started on that. Oh, I had to basically tell some kid in college that was all BS. He was like, "No, man, it happened. This is the '90s we're talking about." This kid was a little bit wacky. He was like, "No, but Paul McCartney, this Paul McCartney you see now, that's Billy Shears." And I was like, "Oh my God, man, quit drinking the Kool-Aid, bro." Jeez.
And Paul is really a walrus, man.
Yeah, that's the one too. Walrus means corpse in Greek. No, it doesn't. I know somebody who's Greek. They don't. No, that's not true.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've been in a walrus discussion or two before.
When you're,
I had a friend of mine who did the whole thing and spent a good chunk of a New Year's Eve going over his theories about Sgt. Pepper, including the Billy Shears part.
Yeah.
Like, Paul's dead. It was in the record. You play it backwards, you forget. It's like,
tell me Undead Man. Tell me Undead Man. Revolution number 9's got a car accident going on in the background. No, that's feedback from another track. Well, people, when you were talking, you just brought up a question, Cam, about what they should release.
Yeah, there
was a track they did in 1967 for kind of was like a human being, and it was called, I think, some sort of thing in London, and it's called Carnival of Light. And the big rumor was, when they did the 50th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper in 2017, they were going to release that.
So you'd like a lot of the more just promised and yet still.
Yeah, they didn't. It's not that they didn't come through on it. It's just, I think McCartney was like, "We've got enough here." He kind of told Giles Martin, "We've got enough here. Let's take it from there." But I think the one thing they got to do next is, if they're going to go backwards, I think they should do Rubber Soul and do Help. And then I think you should leave Beatles for Sale, Hard Day's Night. I don't think there's a lot of outtakes and stuff like that in there. I think those first 4 Beatles records should be left alone. I'd love to hear more of the early stuff, like the Live at the Star Club in Hamburg. I'd love to see that remastered and put out. Because I think that's the only time, like, it's the original 4, not post Pete Best.
Gotcha.
And I'd love to see them put out Rock and Roll Music Volume 1 and Volume 2, which were back in the late 70s, early 80s. put out some of the stuff that, Capitol didn't want to issue. I know they have 8 days a week now. That's live at the Hollywood Bowl. So, just go into those vaults and just dig out stuff that no one's heard before,
Yeah, I mean, because even the music gurus who think they know everything, they're running out of material. Yeah. Surprise us, damn it.
Yeah.
So speaking personally, one of the things I think that makes sense in a marketing kind of way is doing just the Beatles albums related to their film efforts. Help, Magical Mystery Tour, Yellow Submarine. You just kind of put them all together in a box set.
That would be great.
Would be nice.
The movies edition, yeah. TV specials edition. Kind of like the Monkeys. You could just divide it up by category. There's lots too.
There's one thing I think that people want to see, and it came out in the 90s and they pulled it because Apple was kind of going, no, you can't do that. The 1966 Budokan concert in Japan. I have it as a bootleg. It's them in 1966. I think it's the second show, because the first show, if you watch it, it's on YouTube somewhere. The first and second shows, it's a total difference. The first show, they sound very sloppy. The second show, if you've ever seen the movie The Complete Beatles, they played parts of that show in it, where they're talking about touring, and all that.
They pretty much only could show like 5 seconds.
Well, they got permission. They got permission, I think, from Apple to do this, because that was the first real, and that should come out too. The Complete Beatles. That's really the first Beatles documentary before the anthology. And Malcolm McDowell did the narration on it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I actually saw that as a kid, and I was like, oh wow, okay, this is what happened. Okay,
this is big.
And it starts from them being schoolboys, playing in hand, getting the band together, the Quarrymen, the Beatles, Stuart Sutcliffe leaving and then passing away, Pete Best getting kicked out, the rise up to the top, and then them becoming like this juggernaut that breaks all the rules, in the for 60s pop and rock music.
Totally. We need more rule breakers. That is for sure.
Jesus Christ, we do.
More rule breakers, less auto-tune.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not breaking rules. That's just being lazy. Fucking lazy as fuck.
That's breaking eardrums.
Yeah. And then can you give me a kind of skull candy where I can tune all that shit out? I don't have to hear it with every other car racing past me on the way to work. Please. No.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up